This is the Post Shift Podcast, a raw look at the hospitality industry. Hey there, Post Shifters, and welcome to another episode of Post Shift Podcast with your host, Shawn Soole. Obviously, you know who it is because you're listening. This episode today is a little bit of a mashup between my passion project, BC Spirits, and the Post Shift Podcast, obviously. The big thing is that I was at BC Distill just last week. It was last week. And I got to sit down with a couple of distillers. One of my favorite guys, James Lester from Sons of Vancouver, is this week's interview. And then in a couple of weeks' time, I've got Gordon Miriam from Odd Society, which was a fantastic interview as well. So I hope you really enjoyed it. I love doing this little mashup sort of thing with BC Spirits and the Post Shift Podcast. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I'll see you next week. Bye.
Okay, so we'll get started. So do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is James Lester, and I am the janitor, the owner, and the distiller at Sons of Vancouver.
I think this is going to be a nice little BC Spirits mashup with Post Shift Podcast, because I think a lot of people... Well, my main goal with Post Shift Podcast has always been, I know you listen to a few, is get behind what people are doing and why they did it. Because, let's be honest, everybody has this sort of romanticized version of owning a bar or a restaurant or being a bartender or owning a distillery. Owning a distillery is the best thing ever.
Oh, yeah.
And you actually sit down with the people and get to know them, because it's always... The interviews are always about, successes, never about massive, horrible failures.
Yeah.
So how long has Sons of Vancouver been open for?
It's been open for 4 years, just over 4 years now.
Really, that all?
Yeah.
Man, it's 4 years have gone back fast.
Yeah, we were 25 to open, 25th to open in the province, and now there's somebody told me yesterday that there's 70.
Yeah, there's 73, and I think we have 10 opening before the end of the year.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so even in Victoria, we've got James Bay Distillers opening, but they're going to be bottlers, similar to Victoria, Caledonia.
Yeah.
Of course, we've got Shelley Bespoke up in Parksville. You've got Misguided in Parksville as well.
Yeah.
So 2 in Parksville opening up before summer.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's what I always love. I sit down and do the episodes, and I pick a category, and I'm I pick a category of spirits. I'm okay, well, let's do fruit brandies. There can't be too many fruit brandies. I'm thinking 4 or 5 examples.
Yeah.
And 9 later is no. And same thing with just brandy. It's a lot. And then liqueurs, I always thought liqueurs are still super underrated in the BC market.
Yeah.
And then I started doing liqueurs, and I'm well, I've got a ton of yours on the shelf, and I'm trying to figure out, I may be doing 3 different episodes of liqueurs.
That's good to hear. Yeah.
Just because of your stuff. We may have one episode completely dedicated to coffee.
Wow, man, it would be really fun to you can download the LDB, or you can purchase the LDB sales numbers. Yeah. It'd be really interesting just to write out every craft product and spreadsheet it, just to see where there's clumps and where there's gaps.
I tried to figure out a way, because the one thing I really wanted to do was a timeline of all the distilleries, where the liquor board doesn't keep records of when they got their license.
Yeah.
So I wanted to...
you have to go through the bottles individually.
Yeah.
For the established 2013.
Yeah, that's literally what I wanted to do, is do a timeline of where everything opened.
Yeah.
And when it opened. But then it became a big nightmare. They sent me through a couple of Excel spreadsheets, and then I was no, I don't want to do this anymore. This seemed like a fun idea that I always thought literally cut and paste, sort. Okay, I'm done now. I can just put it into a pretty infographic. And I'm no, you got to literally go through and look at each one.
Email everybody individually.
Oh man, that's like rounding up cats. Yeah. So what made you want to do Sons of Vancouver? What made you want to do a distillery?
My business partner Richard. We went to trade school together, and he grew up in Fort St. John. We both worked in process control and instrumentation. Yeah. So out of high school, just had no idea what I wanted to do. And the career counselor was this was all up north. So everyone's getting in the trades, and the career counselor was you don't know what you want to do? Go to the oil patch. You'll make a bunch of money, and you can figure it out. And we both worked up there for a couple years. As soon as we got our journeyman certificates, we just quit. And then kind of left, did our own thing for a few years, but had this pretty handy trade background in our back pocket. So we kind of milled about out on it for a while. And instrumentation is like, it has to deal with like the properties of flow, basically. So you're working in oil and gas, and I've never really worked in oil. It's like mostly just natural gas in British Columbia. So you're dealing with the properties of flow, and that's directly correlated to alcohol. And it's not really too far off from brewing, actually. So we'd both been like homebrewing for a few years when I was in high school. There was a teacher's strike, and we just got like 2 weeks off in the middle of the year. We weren't old enough to buy beer, but we were old enough to buy everything to make beer. And this was like just a fun summer hobby, and or second summer hobby we called it. And I don't know, it was like absolutely awful beer, but it was really interesting, like the process from going from like converting starches to sugars, and then converting sugars into alcohol. And I always just remembered that. And we got into process control, which is distilling, but on like a massive scale. You're separating elements of the earth, and like you're separating like diesel from propane and stuff like that. So eventually we both just we quit the oil patch and like bounced around for a couple of years. I was bartending in Australia, and I bartended at the Australia's only Batman themed nightclub.
I don't know that one.
That was probably after your time. You probably left by then. And one thing led to another, and like I was living in Williams Lake, actually building log houses for. You ever see the Timber Kings show?
Yeah.
Familiar with that? I was in the pilot episode of Timber Kings. So I was a medic up there building log homes, and I was kind of just like, we'd seen like craft beer come up, and Richard and I had always like, when we worked together, we always like talked about opening something. We just didn't know what it was. And at that time, he was moving back from Colombia with a gorgeous girlfriend and a cute dog. And he was talking about opening a liquor store in Calgary. And I was like, what about distilling, man? Like, let's think about it. And we had a massive Skype conversation, and I convinced him to move to Vancouver. And I had a friend living here, and he's like, I can get you a job at a coffee shop for $14 an hour plus tips. And I was like, sweet, I'm moving to Vancouver. And I never took the job at the coffee shop, but I went to Capilano up here, a small business course, with the focus on opening a distillery, and wrote a business plan around that time. I worked at a bourbon distillery in Seattle, and a little bit at a limoncello distillery, which is where we got our inspiration to do amaretto. We knew we had no money. We had a bunch of time to open the distillery, and so we kind of the steps to opening a business would be you find a location, you submit your papers, you do the lease, you wait for the build out, you wait for the building permit, and you do the build out. And we were looking for a building, which is, I always tell people, it's the toughest part of opening a distillery. We were looking for a building, so in the meantime, we had to build the brand as much as we could, because we had no money for marketing or anything like that, and we needed to do it as early as possible. So that was when it was probably 2013 or something. I started the Vancouver Gin Society, and there was there was already a Seattle Gin Society. So we just we got a bunch of gin from them and brought it up here, and then we'd hold tastings, and that was back when Long Table and Liberty were really in Yaletown were the only distilleries in Vancouver. Shortly after Odd Society opened. And so we just tried to build this if this is your business here, we tried to build this network around it to come at it from every direction. And and a lot of the people that I met through the Gin Society, I call my friends today, and they're people in the industry.
Wow. So you opened up 4 years ago. Why? What was when you first opened? What was your focus? What spirit was your focus? Because you don't have a gin, do you?
No.
So you have your vodka and your chili vodka. But what was what was your real focus when it came to open? Because I know most distilleries, they open and they're like, okay, we'll do a vodka because that's easy. We'll do a gin because that's easy.
The distillery.
We'll put down a whiskey, that's easy. And you seem to go a different route. Was that you went a different route and you went like, let's do an amaretto. Was that intended?
Definitely. Yeah. That was strategic, if I can use that word.
Yeah. Was strategically making a craft amaretto in Vancouver.
Yeah. Actually, I had another one the other day from like Quebec. Somebody brought it in.
Oh, really?
It's the only other one I've ever heard of. So in Seattle, I used to run I worked at a distillery in Seattle. I don't have a American citizenship, but I'd go down on Friday and I'd spend all Saturday and Sunday at the distillery, and I'd come home with my like duty-free limited booze. That was working. But I did that like every weekend for a year, and it started with just mashing in the back, which is the most boring part of distilling, and then eventually like working in the tasting room and doing tours, and then eventually I got onto the stills. But like I ran events for the Seattle Gin Society, and you could see things like that. Like you could see that everybody wanted to be the gin distillery or the vodka distillery in Seattle. And at that time we had there would have been 13 distilleries in BC, but there was 14 in Metro Seattle. Yeah. There was 75 in Washington State. Like I always say it's 5 years ahead. Now we have 70 and they have 200 or something like that. So there's a limoncello distillery down there called Letterpress, and to this day, it's like their limoncello is one of the most amazing things that I've ever tasted. Everybody wanted to be like the gin distillery, and these guys were just like hand over fisting limoncello, and like it was such a weird thing. But I always remember that, and we have a friend. He's an investor in that distillery actually, and he's like a financial advisor. And I remember. He's like, oh yeah, so you're opening a distillery, and he's like, what are you gonna make? He's like, well, we're gonna make vodka and gin and moonshine, and like, you're like, I shouldn't make that accent because that's what everyone says. And so he just started telling everybody. He's like, this is my friend James. They're opening a moonshine distillery, and I was like, we're not opening a moonshine distillery. We're also gonna make this and this, and but like after his heckling and seeing the limoncello distillery, that's when we rethought everything. And I think like everybody getting into this, and like I've sat down with people who write business plans, and they're like, just look at the vodka numbers. There's $1 bajillion of vodka sold in BC every year, and you're like, you should be making more money selling vodka. But like, man, there's so many vodkas out there.
You'd be surprised. I'm talking to some craft distilleries now in BC who are like talking about delisting their vodka, and not even worrying about it. We were actually going to do it this year. We were going to stop selling vodka because it'd be so cool to stop selling vodka. But like, our vodka's good. The vodka's good, and it's a little bit of cream. Yeah. You're going to sell like a X amount of bottles at a farmer's market or something like that. It's just going to move.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, so the way our sales reps explained it to us was like, we were going to stop selling vodka, and they're like, if you stop selling vodka, not only do you have to release another product, you have to like release another product that sells double just to replace the sales of the vodka. And then it was like, oh yeah, you're right.
And you can't make enough coconut rum.
Yeah.
So the amaretto came about, and were you expecting the success of the amaretto? Because I think that your amaretto would be classed as your flagship, would you not?
Oh yeah,
that's your, like when people talk about Sons of Vancouver, it's the number 82.
More than 50% of what we sell is amaretto.
Wow.
Yeah, like
that's impressive.
Consistently, and in like December, because we do the distilling course, like I sit down with people every month, and so I go through and like. In like June, vodka, like just the regular vodka, might account for like 25 or like 30% of sales. But then in like December, vodka's like 2%, just because amaretto is like, it's not vodka season, but it's prime amaretto season.
Everybody wants for Christmas.
Yeah.
So then that sort of leads through to when did you start your April Fool's release?
It was 3 years ago. So the year, like we opened in March of 2015, I think. And then the following April, yeah.
So what was the thinking behind the April Fool's Day?
So
well, except for being absolutely epic.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Thanks. It's carved. It's now carved out like where it's going.
Yeah.
But when we first released it, like I'm just gonna grab a bottle.
Because of the blue curacao first, right?
It was actually Coffee Liqueur Sucks.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I'll get closer to the mic. Coffee Liqueur Sucks was the first April Fool's Day release, and we didn't really have we didn't know where we were going with it. It's like 50% of this product is like making fun of the distilling industry, and the other 50% is just a good product. Like it's funny
Well, it's also the thing is like every April Fool's is getting a little ridiculous now. Every April Fool's, every company brings out some sort of April Fool's marketing thing.
Oh yeah,
but it's all pickle burger and all that sort of stuff. And you followed through on
it kills me.
You followed through on the marketing.
There's so many people. Yeah, they invent a product and don't release it.
Yeah.
And it like people get excited about it or like I just stopped going on Facebook for April Fool's Day. Like it's terrible. But we wanted to make something that was funny and like that people loved. There's like I listened to like an Elon Musk interview like years ago where he's like, there are no products or there are no companies that people love anymore. Yeah. And I think about that constantly, that like we could have just designed this product, or like anybody can design a product and like put it on Facebook, but if you can like hold it in your hands, it's like it's just money. Like it's so funny. It's 10 times funnier than just designing it. Yeah. So we always say we take our products very seriously, but we take our jokes very seriously as well. So this was like we ran this big campaign where like my business partner just had his first son, and we we were like, April Fool's release coming, and we like took like pictures of like I had coffee beans or something, or the corner of the label or something like that, and people started to guess what it was. And then we ran like a bunch of publicity with like Scout magazine articles on this release that's coming. But at the same time, we also promoted his like at that time like 4-month-old son as our master distiller. And the joke behind this was like, there's this guy in Scotland who for like 60 years of his life has been like making whiskey, and he wants to make like, he's got this dream of like the best whiskey, and that guy, he calls himself a master distiller. And then like in our industry, you buy a still, get business cards, call yourself a master distiller in that order. And we wanted to shed some light on the industry that we've chosen to be a part of. And coffee liqueur is like, it's one of those things that like everybody releases, and it ironically it ruins coffee all the time. It just does not go well with coffee. So we released this product, and everybody thought it was a joke. Like I remember selling this, like we released it the first weekend in April, and I remember selling it in like June. Like we had it forever. And people would come in and they'd see it and they'd be like, whoa, shit, like I didn't think that was real. And so then like, and we sold it for like $20 a bottle just to try to get it out. Like it was supposed to be around for like a week, and it was here forever. But it carved the direction that this was going. And so then we have...
This one was the actual one that I thought was a joke. This one I honestly believed when I saw it in Scout magazine, the blue curacao.
So good to hear.
When I saw the blue curacao, I'm like, no fucking way, this is not possible.
Yeah.
Like, a craft blue curacao, it's just, no, it can't be done. Mm-hmm. Then I think I reached out to you, like, hey, is this real? Yeah. And you're like, oh yeah. I'm like, fuck.
So this was like, this was the one that formed the path that we're on now. It's
a craft blue curacao.
It's a craft blue curacao, yeah.
And it's awesome.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, I'm going to have it on, I'm putting it on the next menu at PAGS. We're going to do Cold Surviving on Blue, which I know is very classic.
Make sure you get your order in.
Yeah. Well, yeah, especially with how everything's going with Container World. But yeah, we're gonna keep it because I was like, I just want to keep the blue curacao on the menu, and it just sells really well. I won't have a blender, but it'll be a nice shaken one up. And I think we're gonna do Kazuki Gin from Sheringham, the blue curacao, the Imperative, and lemon juice. So really, and then like a hardcore BC Corpse Survivor.
Do you got a craft absinthe in there?
A little taboo.
Oh, yeah.
Chuck a little taboo in there.
Oh man.
And then this year, your big April Fool's one was the coconut rum.
Was the craft coconut rum?
Craft coconut rum.
There's a big trend in British Columbia. So everyone has to use, as a craft distillery, you have to use BC agriculture. And it's the thing to caramelize, ferment, and distill honey, and then put it in a used whiskey barrel age it. Actually, last night at the distillers dinner we had the Wayward, and I think it was like 2 or 3 years old.
Yeah,
been in a barrel. Man, it was awesome. It was
there's
so good.
Stuff, and I remember going to see Dave when he first started fermenting honey, and all the things that he had to do to try and get it to work. He's got it dialed in now.
Yeah.
But I remember his hot room.
Yeah.
So he had an old cool room in the back of the building.
Yeah.
That he pumped hot air into, and he would roll the 44-gallon drums of honey in there, so it would stay runny.
Yeah, yeah.
And then he'd roll it out to mix it with water. Because he was doing it in big toes, like big toes.
Yeah,
on for everything. And now he's really got it dialed in.
Oh man.
Yeah, because you gotta push it around and let the yeast get into it. It doesn't behave the same way as grain does.
Yeah.
It behaves completely differently. So it's a honey rum.
Yep.
Did you age it at all? Or is it just straight?
No, it's just white rum, toasted coconut and sugar. We were gonna I'd really 100% expected to put the coconut extract, the essence of sunscreen in there, but we couldn't get a little amount. I don't know how to say that. We couldn't get less of it.
Yeah.
And it always just tasted like just some weird chemical.
Yeah.
Either you had way too much and it was just sunscreen, or it was this weird chemical flavor that you couldn't exactly identify.
And we were talking about it, a bunch of tiki guys came out from Seattle and bought just case upon case upon case.
Yeah, yeah. The blue curacao, because somebody saw the blue curacao at the Dark Manor in Vancouver, which is the sister bar to the Shameful Tiki Room, and then craft blue curacao, and they reported back to the tiki community, and then we got into the tiki community, and so they drove up and bought cases of either. And
you pretty much sold out of the craft coconut now, yeah.
We have enough for this weekend. We're doing another batch just so we can get it out to accounts. I feel so bad because people saw it and then
just want it.
Yeah. It was almost like we'd done this whole thing where we release April Fool's products that actually exist, but then they sell out so fast that they don't exist to the people who want them as well.
So when it comes to we just did a walkthrough on the distillery and everything, and it seems to me, just from outside looking in, is that you sort of have a rule of unless I can build it, I won't buy it unless I can build it.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way it sort of looks. Is I'm not going to buy XYZ because I know I can probably build XYZ.
Yeah. Okay, so there's the thing is we opened this place for $100,000. That if we'd stuck to that budget, we'd still be producing the amount that we produced 3 years ago. And we have to grow. Either we have to work more, which is impossible, or we have to grow our scale. Yeah. And so we've just gotten innovative with that. I always think about opening any, I wouldn't exactly call myself a businessman, but opening any business, I always think about what do you have that no one else has? And it could be as simple as you have a proprietary recipe. You have this really great recipe. It could be that easy. But if you want to open a food truck, maybe you have access to a commissary kitchen, where everyone else is paying for the commissary kitchen. You have a free commissary kitchen, and that'll put you a little bit ahead. I'd say in this particular industry, at least when we opened up, we had this technical background of separating elements of the earth on a massive scale. And so for us, that was going to put us ahead. We didn't have access to capital, but we had sort of access to
a skill set.
To designing a lot of our own equipment and and being able to actually to change things. So if we have an idea for continuous still and it didn't work, we can at least re-workshop it and try to figure it out.
Yeah.
It's sort of like a really interesting idea that came to us in the last year is if you open a distillery and you have really small equipment, which eventually everyone outgrows their equipment in this industry. If you have really small equipment, you get really good at it really fast. Whereas, like, if you open a distillery and you have massive tanks, you might only be running your still like once a month, once every 2 months maybe, like especially when you open. And if your product's shit or you're not good at it, it takes a long time to get better, and that's sitting on some bar shelf, it's sitting on like a liquor store shelf for maybe a year.
Yeah. So is that sort of the reason why you started doing the distillery school?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Because like we said at the very beginning, it's like everybody wants to own a distillery because it'd be awesome.
It's sexy to say.
It is sexy to say,
especially when you put master distiller on your business card.
Well, it's the same thing as like in my world right now. I go through a lot of. You're an entrepreneur. I'm like, no, I'm not an entrepreneur. I just tend to do a lot of different projects for a lot of different people. Mm-hmm. So I try and take away the sexiness of being busy all the time. So what entails? Because you do this story once every quarter, once every 3 months?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, about 4 times a year.
Yeah. And how many people do you usually have?
We have a maximum of 3.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I thought it was a little bigger than that.
No.
Maximum of 3 people?
Yeah.
And you do the full walkthrough, sort of showing the general gist and general running down of everything?
Yeah, so we do that. We actually do that like every day. That like just to wrap your head around what we do and how maybe when you first came in here, how you thought like a distillery runs. We explain everything. We do that. We do that tour every morning.
Oh wow! Just to really just nut it down.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you how popular are the schools?
We sell out. I mean, we're booked like every time.
Wow.
Yeah. So actually, I will say that there have been some classes where there's just one person.
And so there's people that really are interested in doing this for a living.
Yeah.
I think definitely just demystifying because people, if you Google distillery, you're not going to see a picture of your distillery. You're going to see a picture of some massive automated that you just go boop, boop, boop,
like $500,000 distillery.
Yeah, and then away you go, and everything like cuts itself off when you hit the heads, cuts itself off when you hit the tails. Like you walk up a couple of hours later and you just pull off
it makes itself.
Yeah. But the response is always good on those?
Yeah. I'd say like maybe like to answer that, like 50% of the people come in just want to see if they would enjoy doing this. And then 25% you couldn't talk them out of it if they tried. And another 25% come in with like a business plan and like industry research, and this is their last step before they open it. And they just want to make sure that like either they haven't forgotten anything or they're not making a huge mistake.
Yeah.
And there's enough of like a tourism in distilling schools where like you're gonna drop like $500,000 and open a business and turn your life around, that like you want to go to school for it.
Yeah.
And like people will take 4 or 5 different courses.
Yeah. Even if it's a reality check for 3 days. Like, I think that's always the big thing with bars and restaurants. Everybody has like we said, bars and restaurants always have this sort of mystique around it, but then when you really get down to it, you're like, just before open, your male washroom is plugged and overflows, or something doesn't ferment the right way, or something like that.
Oh man!
Like,
I think I said this to you the last time we hung out and your ice machine died.
Yeah,
it was like running a small business is just solving a series of small problems one after another.
Yeah, like I've been popping up to Stillhead a lot lately because I'm doing a project with them, and like it's insane because you are working with so many variable organics that are really out of your control. So like they've been pitching the same yeast in different in the same batches of grain, and they ferment completely different.
Wild.
I think Steelhead posted a picture last night of like their fermenting bubble just going mental, like just going mental. And it was literally, I've been out there with 3 tanks, all done at the same time, all pitched with the same style of yeast, and they're all fermenting differently.
Wow. And
it's crazy because they're very automated. They're a pretty full spec sort of distillery.
Yeah.
They're amazing up there. But
I'd love to go there and see what's going on.
They're running out of room. Their barrels, they did 20,000 pounds of apples over the snowy period.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
apple
amazing,
brandy.
man.
Well, they're the same sort
I'd
of
love to know how many apples are in a bottle. I've always wondered that.
Well, apparently, I just did the fruit brandy episode, and apparently there's 24 Bartlett pears in Okanagan Spirits Bartlett pear brandy.
Whoa. That's a lot of pears.
A lot of pears. So, what sort of advice? Like, we'll start finishing up. What sort of advice would you have for someone who wants to be a distiller in BC? And you can't say don't do it.
No. There's a lot of people that say that, but anyone who says don't do it, it's
comes from a different place.
So yeah, absolutely. They're not in it for the same reasons. And I would say really know your market. That there's kind of this idea that if there's a bajillion bottles of vodka sold, and you're just going to shave off 1% of that people are throwing this net into the market or the public, and they're like hoping to like pull fish in. Yeah. But I believe the way that it should be done is to find I don't want to say niche, but is to find a segment of people and just service them really well. You know, like the tiki is an example of that. And to a small group of people, you want to be the absolute best thing. Yeah. But you don't want to beat everyone. That's impossible. Yeah. You're just going to water your brand down. And it's to really figure that out. That's why I find that spreadsheet, like the list of distilleries and like the timeline that they opened and all the products that came out. Like that's really interesting. I would say that
it'd be a really massive infograph.
Oh yeah,
start with all the originals and what they put out.
Yeah,
and then go to and just flow from that.
Yeah, all the OG just like fruit brandies and then like vodka, massive gin spike.
Yeah, vodka and gin. But I do think the craft vodka thing is definitely waning because it is that how many repeat buys do you really get on that one bottle of vodka? Yeah, you know, like people fall in love with a gin and love a certain gin, or an amaretto or a craft coconut rum. Yeah, you know, like I haven't had coconut rum behind my bar in a really long time,
so
probably 10 years.
Yeah,
and I'm probably gonna put it on my back bar and do something with it at PAGS for summer.
You know, man, that's an interesting point. Is like I was talking to Steve Lee the other day from the Douglas Distillery, and that there's so many of us that have gotten into this industry and then make the finest and highest quality amaretto, and we're servicing I'm going to say cocktail bars or something, and I used to work in the trades, and all of a sudden I'm a cocktologist.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the thing is we talk about it. I talked about it the other day. Is we get into our bubble of awesomeness. We get into our bubble of awesomeness of because we're always around the same people who are talking the same language and craft beer and stuff. But when you really look at when you get those spreadsheets of sales and you look through and you're like, okay, well, you're still just a drop in the bucket.
Yeah,
in the grand scheme of things.
Out of that bajillion dollars of vodka, who's sitting with a frozen glass, waving it in the air and smelling it?
It's a niche of a niche.
It's a niche of a niche. There's so many people out there that drink Fireball, that drink coconut rum. The biggest segment, the smallest segment of rum is aged rum. Yeah. Aged rum is 8% of the market, and coconut rum sells more than aged rum in BC anyway. That there's all these people that aren't getting these products. There's this massive segment that's not being serviced, and it's people want Fireball, people want blue shit, people want coconut, and the Monashi distillery, Josh.
I was just going to bring them up.
Man, I respect that so much. People are they're making a Fireball, but
look at the market.
Yeah,
if you're going to knock Fireball, Jaeger, and Bailey's off the shelves in Revelstoke, Monashi's done it.
Oh my god,
really, why not? Everybody's drinking Jaeger, chilled Jaeger when it's wintertime up there.
Yeah.
Guess what? I'm gonna freaking make a Jaeger variant.
I heard they got the Jägermeister machine.
Yeah, they rebranded it.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Why would you not do Fireball? Everybody's banging back cold Fireball during snow season.
Yeah,
genius.
Take it up the hill.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's such a good idea. And here I am still making the finest and highest quality craft amaretto. But
yeah, but amaretto is always going to be popular.
That's fair enough. We're bringing them back.
Okay, I got to let you go because this is probably going to come out. I don't know when this is going to come out. I never know when it's going to come out. I always pick and choose. It just ends up being out when I put it out.
I understand.
BC Distills in our time right now, today, tonight. So I'm going to be at the trade tasting. I'm really looking forward to my first BC Distilled.
Yeah.
Horribly enough, it's my first BC Distilled. But I really appreciate it. I love this place. I'm going to do a little post edit on this one, but if you're down in Vancouver, make sure you come out and see Sons of Vancouver. I really appreciate sitting down with you, but I know you're busy today.
Oh, thanks, man. No, this has been great.
This is awesome. Yeah. Okay, guys, have a good week. Bye.
Thanks, Post Shifters. I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you're listening, whatever platform you're on, give me a good rating, subscribe, listen along. I'm going to keep going. I really enjoy sitting down with people and learning where they're from, what they did, and how they got to where they were. So if you love it, give me a good 5 stars. If you don't, give me 1 and I'll try harder.